This is the perbromate ion. In the early 1960s, many scientists had been trying to make this for years. A lot of them thought it was impossible until one man in the late 1960s finally made it. And it really makes you think, what is all this for? You know? Like, what is the point of everything? What's the... Hello, welcome back to another episode of Explosions and Fire. And today we're talking about perbromates. But before we talk about perbromates, we have to talk about perchlorates. And when I say talk about, I mean we're going to blow some stuff up. Let's just go blow some stuff up immediately. Perchlorates are a very common oxidizer in pyrotechnics, and they're very good at oxidizing a metal fuel especially. You've got this high oxidation state chlorine surrounded by 4 oxygens, so it's a lot of oxygens to give. Beautiful. But also, the small ion is actually very stable. It doesn't want to give up those oxygens very easily. Being so chemically stable means that the pyrotechnic mixtures aren't that sensitive and won't chemically degrade, but also perchlorate is very good in aqueous situations as well. When you have it in solution, it doesn't really break down, doesn't really react, so even though it may seem counterintuitive, quite often when you want an unreactive ion in solutions, you use perchlorate because it doesn't oxidize or reduce or really interact very much at all. Perchloric acid is also a very strong, useful acid used in a lot of scenarios, and ammonium perchlorate in particular is often used in rocket fuel. So a lot of solid rocket motors are based on ammonium perchlorate. So perchlorates are widely used and are very good. In fact, some would say they are the perfect ion with absolutely no downsides. Except for that one thing. Sure, your body thinks that this is iodine and it will send it to your thyroid because it thinks it's super iodine and it's not and you die. Okay, but that one kind of feels like it's a fault of your body. Your body can tell the difference between oh, this protein is slightly different to, oh, there's 3 atoms different in this 3,000 mega. The second you have this perchloric ion, it's your body's like, that's fucking iodine. No, it's not iodine. It's not iodine. Ruining the perfect fucking ion. If we have perchlorates featuring high oxidation state chlorine, we should have perbromates featuring high oxidation state bromine. I mean, we have
chloride, chlorine, hypochlorites, chlorides, chlorates, and perchlorates.
And we also have
bromide, bromine, bromides, hyperbromites, bromates.
But no perbromates. And it confused scientists. All the other ions were well known. It was pretty odd to have this glaring gap, especially a strong oxidizer. In the early 1960s, they were putting anything in rockets. They were using any rocket fuel they could possibly dream of. So to have a bromine analog of perchlorates, that would make sense in a rocket. There was 2 possible reasons no one was able to isolate perbromates. The first option was it was just not stable. You could put that 4th oxygen on the bromine, but it would just fall apart. The bromine doesn't want to be in the +7 oxidation state, and you're putting too much oxygen around it, so it's just not stable. The other option is it's just very, very difficult to make. So you have 3 oxygens around the bromine as the bromate, and you want to go to perbromate, and it just takes a tremendous amount of energy to put that 4th oxygen on, but once you've done that, the molecule is stable. So do you try and add it in really slowly at cold temperatures, or do you try and blast it with, whatever you possibly can to try and add that 4th oxygen on? This is where we meet the hero of our story, a chemist in the 1960s from Illinois. Not Germany this time. There's been an oversaturation of German chemistry on this channel recently, so we'll see how far we can get without involving any German chemistry in this video. Dr. Evan Appelman, in 1968, is working in Illinois in a national laboratory under the US Department of Energy, and he has a brilliant idea. What if we don't even try to do chemistry to make perbromate? What if we just will it into existence? He takes selenium, irradiates it with neutrons, thanks US Department of Energy in the 1960s, then makes the selenate, and in a little while, the selenium decomposes radioactively into bromine. Hey, he's got perbromate. This process does not make very much perbromate, but it shows him that it's stable and reveals to him a constant horror of experimental science, which is sometimes the answer to experimental problems is just to try a little harder. It's a terrifying thought. He does 2 initial methods to make small amounts of perbromates. Actually, the term he uses in a later paper I really like. He refers to it as a ponderable amount of perbromates. I like that, just enough to ponder on. He does an electrochemistry route, which is not very efficient. He basically bashes all these ions together and searches through the rubble and finds a bit of perbromate. And then he uses xenon difluoride, a very, very strong oxidizer, which is a bit of a flex, actually. This is 1968, and xenon difluoride was only discovered in 1962. So it feels like he's just flexing that he's got access to this molecule. I think he's an expert in like xenon and fluorine chemistry in the US at the time. So he tries this brand new exotic reagent. It works to make perbromates. He publishes the single author paper, continues on, and then does a better synthesis using fluorine gas. Once again, a bit of a flex that he's got fluorine gas. He can make perbromate salts, he can make perbromic acid, but because of the difficulty in the synthesis and the dangers involved and the high cost, perbromates don't find industrial use anywhere. I mean, even Appelman himself, a fluorine expert, says this procedure is reasonably dangerous. You can't use platinum tubing for the synthesis because it interrupts with the perbromate formation, so they have to use Teflon, but there's a note in the paper that sometimes the Teflon just catches on fire, so, you know, that's cool. And also, this is a brand new ion in the universe. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Before you can use it industrially, you have to at least have some idea of its toxicity, because your body probably thinks this is another important ion and will hyperaccumulate it in another organ. So before any industrial use, you've got to find a mouse willing to volunteer to eat its body weight in it. So there's no one stupid enough to spend all this time, money, effort, and resources to make perbromate-based pyrotechnic mixtures. Okay, so we have to make perbromates here in my shed. How do we do it? Build a fluorine generator. I'll just generate some fluorine. No, we're not building a fluorine generator. We can't do it. What other options do we have? There is electrochemistry, but electrochemistry isn't real. It's just a made-up science for wizards. Whatever, we're never going to get any good results from electrochemistry. I mean, even the Appelman wizard himself doesn't get good results from electrochemistry, so we're not doing electrochemistry. So that leaves us with xenon difluoride. Xenon difluoride. It's a pretty dangerous chemical, but also the bigger issue is a legit seller is not going to sell me this dangerous, extremely expensive and rare reagent. And it's not something that's going to appear on the black market. Like, I'm not going to get xenon difluoride off the black market. The grey market, though. Turns out all I had to do was send Bitcoin to a guy in Eastern Europe and he would post me xenon difluoride. I mean, it was actually peak COVID times, so they couldn't directly ship it from Eastern Europe to Australia because of some shipping shutdown. So quick shout out to Elias Experiments for facilitating this xenon difluoride through Germany, which I don't think is a crime, but also technically is help from a German chemist for this video, but he didn't do any chemistry for it, so I'm letting that one slide, all right? Anyway, it arrived, and here I have 1 gram of xenon difluoride that I'm unboxing, and you might be able to tell this was a little while ago. So what happened? Well, I got scared a little. I was a bit scared. Xenon difluoride is a strong oxidizer, but that's not the real scary part about it. The scary bit is the fluorine. Xenon difluoride is very reactive and will react with water to produce xenon and hydrofluoric acid. And it's so reactive that it will do this on contact with water in the air. Hydrofluoric acid is extremely dangerous. It's a small molecule and it can permeate through your skin where it interrupts the calcium signaling by precipitating out calcium fluoride in your bloodstream. It kills your nerves, the blood gets all lumpy, and you have a heart attack and die. It's very bad. Your skin does a good job of keeping hazards on the outside of your inside body where you kind of live, I guess. It does not manage that with hydrofluoric acid. That's a bad thing. There are some horrifically gruesome pictures about hydrofluoric acid necrosis, which I'm not going to put up here, but when I've used hydrofluoric acid in an academic environment, it's the only chemical where you have to mandatorily have someone else conduct the activity with you just to stand there and call the ambulance if you spill it. Also, even though it's a solid, xenon difluoride has a reasonable vapor pressure and apparently smells very bad. So I think, and rightfully so, I was a little bit scared to open this bottle of xenon difluoride. As a consequence, the box containing the xenon difluoride sat in my car. It was in the back of my car for about 4 years. box. I think I was giving someone a lift and they're like, what's in this box? And I was like, oh fuck. Whoops. In my defense, my car does kind of look like a corrosive cabinet, and it already had rust holes for ventilation before I stored the corrosive in it, so I should fix it. I say that every couple of years, but I really should fix that. I guess it's fine. I don't know. Can you imagine if my car got broken into during the 4 years I just had a box of fucking xenon difluoride in it? Some guy opens it and it's just fucking a lethal dose of a fluorine. Anyway, we move on. This year, I don't know what came over me, but I plucked up the courage to finally open the container. Actually, I think what came over me was the thought that it had probably all decomposed anyway. It's got some vapor pressure, so it's probably all left the package. I probably wasted this money a long time ago and nothing will come out of it, but I might as well open it now. It looks pretty well sealed. Okay, all right. Well, if we zoom in, we do see some water droplets on the inside of the packaging. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say water? I meant hydrofluoric acid droplets. That's great. Sure. The xenon difluoride is stored in this small Teflon vial, which I've never seen before, but it's needed because the xenon difluoride is reactive enough to react with glass, so it wouldn't be able to be stored in a glass ampule. It would just etch through it. I could tell the container wasn't empty as soon as I opened it because, man, that smell hit me. Whoa. The smell is like you made some really hot peppermint and spearmint tea, but you put 8 tea bags of spearmint tea in, and instead of water, you used hot bleach. That's what it smells like, but not really. It's very distinctive, but not very pleasant. Once we get past the horrendous smell and the danger, these crystals are beautiful. It is amazing to have a compound of a noble gas that's just stable like this, in these huge, beautiful crystals. This is a side note, but if we're trying to make an expensive and obscure oxidizer, could we just use xenon difluoride as our expensive and obscure oxidizer? Ooh, that's a big lump. Yeah, well, I mean, we can use it in pyrotechnic mixtures if you just accept the fluorine danger. Yeah, xenon difluoride does work for flash powder mixtures. The cool bit about it, though, is you see this blue glow, and I've never seen this blue glow from a pyrotechnic mixture before, and I believe it's the xenon gas getting ionized as it's being created and heated up and everything like that. So that's the ionization light from the xenon, which is very, very cool. Such a waste of an expensive oxidizer. No, not a waste. It's important. It's important science. All right, but let's get serious. We need to weigh out 0.5 gram of xenon difluoride, which we will use to oxidize a small amount of sodium bromate. The sodium bromate I made from sodium bromide, which I got from the hardware store, and I just made it to sodium bromate in an electrochemical cell, but oxidizing it to perbromate takes a lot of xenon difluoride, and we're going to be doing it in an aqueous solution. You would think it would react straight away, but the xenon difluoride does actually dissolve into the solution and react and oxidize things there, as well as break down into hydrofluoric acid and xenon. We know this once again thanks to Appelman from the early 1970s and his work on xenon difluoride in solution. So shout out to him once again. Illinois. It does mean we just have this deathly solution of xenon difluoride and bromate stirring in this Teflon beaker in ice water, keeping it cool, and nothing really seems to happen. There's a little bit of bubbling at the bottom, and that's some oxygen and some xenon, but it's not a whole lot happens here. Now, after all this stirring, we theoretically have made some perbromate, but that doesn't really mean much to us unless we can isolate a solid sample of a pure perbromate salt. So we got to get rid of all these other ions in there. There's bromide, bromate, and xenon and fluoride, so we need to get rid of them first. The reference we're going to use to try and extract a pure perbromate salt is from Appelman himself, the original synthesis paper from 1968. So to start with, we're going to add some calcium hydroxide. This will do two things. Firstly, it will get rid of the vast majority of the fluoride ions, which are going to be removed as calcium fluoride, but also it will neutralize this hydrofluoric acid and get rid of these fluoride ions, which will make it safer. So it's a good first step to do. It's going to make this whole solution a lot safer to be around. Calcium fluoride is a colourless solid, so we're not expecting to see any colour here. So I have no idea why it just decides to go pink. But the idea is to add just enough calcium hydroxide to neutralise most of the fluoride ions, but not make the solution too basic, because then we're going to dissolve calcium into the solution and it's just another contaminant ion. We don't want it to be there. The next chemical we need to add is a silver salt, and the idea of this is the silver is going to bind to the bromate and the bromide and precipitate them out. But silver perbromate is soluble, so any spare silver is not going to precipitate out any perbromate. Again, we're not expecting it to go any colour, so it just goes black, and this seems wrong. I probably added too much calcium hydroxide. I felt like the pH was wrong, so I added in some hydrobromic acid to try and make it just a bit more acidic. And I'm adding this in until I see silver bromide start precipitating out, which is a white solid. So naturally it turns yellow, and even when it's stirring, some of the stuff that's splashed on the sides goes a vibrant green colour, which I have no idea what that was about. It's not a great sign, but all of these solids should now be able to be filtered out, and we've removed our fluoride, our bromide, and our bromate, and just left with our perbromate in solution. To make sure that none of these contaminants make it through to our end product, I also ran the solution through the centrifuge to make sure that all those light, fluffy fluoride solids definitely get separated out from the solution containing our perbromate ion. To recover perbromate, we just need to make up a solution of a cesium salt, because cesium perbromate, like cesium perchlorate, is very insoluble. When we add our cesium solution to our supposed perbromate solution, we get, for the first time, a white solid. But I wasn't convinced, and I was right to not be convinced, because there's just way too much solid. And one way we can test if it actually is the thing we want is by making this solution again acidic. I don't know why it stopped being acidic, but we can again add some hydrobromic acid. Maybe that solid was cesium bromate, maybe it was cesium hydroxide, but neither of them are stable at low pH. So by making it acidic, we cancel out all those other ions. But there is still a tiny amount of crystals still in solution. And when we cool it down and get it so cold that it basically freezes, we do have some crystals. It is a little bit off yellow, which is not a great sign, but running the solids through the centrifuge, there's definitely a heavier crystalline solid and just a small amount of yellowish powder, which I think is maybe some silver fluoride that made it all the way through. So, much to my genuine surprise, we have made actual cesium perbromate here in my shed. It's not very much. I mean, it is a ponderable amount.
87 milligrams.
But it's enough to ponder one pyrotechnic mixture.
All right, I've got 87 milligrams of perbromate and 11 milligrams of sugar. I hope I got the ratios right, because we've got one shot at this. One shot. Let's get this mixed up.
So are you ready to ponder?
It actually worked.
So yeah, we did it. We pondered Perbromate Pyrotechnics, but
Alright, well, why was that good?
I just couldn't stop pondering, you know? What's the point of it all? Was it a pointless Perbromate Pyrotechnic? Could we have made a better mixture? Was it even really proper Perbromate? Was the real Perbromate the friends we made along the way? What's... Didn't feel very satisfying. So... I think we have to go to our last resort. I said I wouldn't, but we gotta do it. Let's involve a German chemist. The second hero of our story here is Niels. Niels is studying his PhD in chemistry over in Germany, but more importantly, he is a supporter of Explosions&Fire on Patreon. So when I posted, hey, I'm thinking about making these perbromates, this obscure compound that basically no one had, he messaged like, oh yeah, I'm just doing my PhD on that. I believe he's using them for a silicon etchant for semiconductors, which is cool, but to do that, he needs to make them because no one's got perbromates. Niels is doing the classic good perbromate synthesis using fluorine gas, which he's able to do in Professor Krause's lab, and he's actually doing it really well and managed to scale it up to a large amount and has made new purification techniques that would have been really useful for me if I had thought about it, and I wouldn't have to do all this stupid ion exchange stuff because it just, apparently you can just recrystallize it from acetone. But anyway, he's writing up a paper and should soon be published about the good synthesis of perbromates, which is probably very overdue. But that's not why Niels is a hero. Niels is a hero because he said, yeah, I'll send you some. Whatever. I'll send you a whole damn gram of perbromate. Now, don't get greedy. 1 gram doesn't look like a lot compared to these big pictures of a lot of perbromate, but he sent this 1 gram before he'd worked out these large-scale procedures when there were hardly any grams of perbromate in the world. And he was like, here's a whole gram of perbromate. So we have here some official cesium perbromate in my hands. Finally, once again, test some Perbromate Pyrotechnics. Let's go! Alright, this is some cesium perchlorate and sugar, and then cesium perbromate and sugar. So we'll light it from the cesium perchlorate side. Whoa, the perbromate is fantastic. That's sick. Okay, this one is 100 milligrams perbromate, 10 milligrams aluminium, 10 milligrams sulfur. More traditional flash recipe that I won't spill. That kind of sucked. See, here I have 150 milligrams of perbromate, 15 milligrams of hexamine, and this is 10 to 15 milligrams of hafnium powder, obviously. Sure. Oh, yeah, it's gone. It's good, but it's not as good as perchlorates. It's just like a heavier, badder version of perchlorates, and we already have perchlorates. I don't think that's good. Is that really the point? No, I know what the point is. Last year, I got the chance to go to Germany, and you know who was there? Niels. I got to have a beer with Niels. So, surprise, the point of the perbromate is the friends we make along the way. It doesn't matter that perbromate sucks, because I got to buy him a beer. Well, I mean, actually, it was a cash-only bar, and I didn't realize that there was a cash-only bar. So technically, he bought the beer. He actually bought 4 beers for me, actually, because they kept asking, and I didn't have any money. And yeah, so he bought me all the beers, and he had to drive about 4 hours to meet me, to buy me all the beers, and I'm not a good friend.